Okay.
Right, they're Ben here, and today we're joined by Dave Hicks. We're in the Punch Studio down at Brockenhurst, and an amazing product called Procore. So I've been lucky enough, I've tried it, and I'll let Dave explain it, so I don't want to get it wrong in terms of how precise and how great the product is. So Dave, just tell me a little bit about the journey of what Procore's been, what it is, and basically what it does.
Well, the journey's been quite a few years now. We started off with putting, and the whole idea was to produce a damping device, mini-mass damper.
Yeah.
That's actually what it's called, a proper name, for putters. So we came up with two at the time. One was a 20 gram, which is aluminium, one which is stainless steel, which is 50 grams. And they work perfectly. But moving on from there, over a long period of time, we really wanted to produce something that went in all clubs. So we started to develop another range of Procores that would fit into the irons. Wedges in the first place, they're the first ones that went to the R&A, and they were quite shocked at what they did. But then we wanted to get, that was down to, let's start again on that, that was down to around 12 grams. Then we finally got one down to 8 grams of the same quality.
So a massive drop in terms of the weight was going into the shaft.
But that was still too heavy for drivers and the rest of the irons. So we then worked on some more, and we got them down to 5 grams. But I still wasn't happy because we really needed one that came out about 2 or 3 grams. And that is the 3 gram version that we now currently have. Now that's all been designed in the last 18 months. So it's very recent. I took advantage of COVID, as they say, and got on and designed a new one.
And it weighs absolutely...
And that weighs 3 grams.
Nothing.
It's made as one piece. It has a little foam collar on it,
here.
if you can see it.
Little foam collar around the top, and really does, it literally doesn't weigh anything at all. Which
Compared
is
to these.
Compared to the original ones. The
So,
original ones still have a roll though. And they've still got a purpose in terms of the weight and what goes on. But the new one here is, sticking a driver shaft, you're not going to feel it at all.
No, not at all.
And the science behind, right, interesting thing is now, what does it actually do? What is the science behind? Someone put Procore into their club. We won't talk parts at the moment. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But if someone put Procore into their club, driver for example, what would it do? What would they see?
Well, the first impression everybody gets is when you put a Procore in, the sound changes, the feel changes, the repeatability changes. The big thing is the stability of the shaft is so much better. Whether it's in an iron or whether it's in a driver, but the stability improvement with Procore, because it's put in under compression, it's changing the characteristics of the shaft. What you then get is the ability to put it in a standard position, and we now put it in with a force gauge, so we measure it in Newton meters. So we start off normally about 110 Newton meters. We can go to 125 is the next step, and then 140 is the deep step, which gives you much more power. But that suits the amateur, but the professional or the elite player or the tour player would probably be around about 110, 120 compression point.
So the ability to just take the one and just, regardless of standard, regardless of level, you're able to fine tune it for them. So it's
We've got a chart, we've got a matrix chart which shows which Procore, that's a little pink one, that's a 10mm Procore, whether you can see that. That goes in a regular shaft, a stiff shaft and an X shaft. If we then have to go to a tour stiff shaft, we have to go up to 10.2, and it's all about the kick point and actually moving out the shaft slightly. If you go to a ladies, you would go to a 9.6 diameter and a 9.8 for a seniors. So slightly different position in the shaft to make the shaft perform in a slightly different way.
Okay, so it's working up and down in terms of the shaft position.
Within about a 3-inch dimension actually inside the shaft. Okay.
And really maximising its position to make sure it's flexing in the right spot and doing the job it's meant to do to its best ability. So it's not just we stick it in and have a hope. It's in there for an exact reason to get the most out of the product possible.
Yeah. Now the thing that you can do is you can go to a standard position, which we recommend, on our data sheet for each type of shaft, stiffness of shaft.
Yeah.
But then you can start to optimize, so you can actually optimize for the player based on performance, and he would then need to go to the pro. So you've actually got a launch monitor. You go out onto the range or in the studio. Probably on the range is always better, I think.
And seeing the flight. But
you can see the flight, but you can actually, by changing the compression of the Procore in the shaft, which means its position changes. It goes from soft at 110 newton meters down deeper and deeper, increasing it to 140 newton meters. You can actually move the ball flight from the softer position, a flight which is right, soft fade. As you go down, it goes straighter, and then you go to the most powerful setting, which is 140 newton meters, and you've now got a flight which is very powerful with a slight draw.
Okay.
That's what you can do.
Now, what you do is tell me about, take a normal golfer you fitted,
Yep.
and just the difference that they found. So obviously for those of you kind of just your normal club golfer, and kind of like everyone kind of always talks about elite stuff, but if you just tell us, Dave, the normal golfer you put it into, kind of the outstanding findings and what really kind of the real world application, which is what really happened and the success that they had.
Well, the first thing, they prefer the sound, almost definitely.
Yeah.
They prefer the feel. The one thing they do really like is the fact that the dispersion is probably halved. It's a 50% improvement on dispersion in most cases with all the clubs.
So you imagine missing a fairway to hitting a fairway, or missing a green, hitting a bunker to actually hitting on a fringe. How much more enjoyable that would make your game?
A lot. And in terms of distance, because the shaft is repeating more accurately and you're hitting the sweet spot more often, you're going to be gaining somewhere around about 5%. So you're going to be gaining 10, 20 yards on distance. That's a big statement, but that's what happens. As far as wedges go, the accuracy both in distance, so your dispersion to the pin is better in terms of distance to the pin, but your sideways dispersion is much improved as well. And that is where you're going to get you're going to halve your dispersion. We proved it last Friday in a test we did with Gareth Shaw, who works with the PGA, and they were absolutely shocked that their dispersion, in fact it went from 7 yards to 1.5 yards.
Which is ridiculous.
And in fact, his last shot to the pin, he actually hit the pin. It was that precise, and they couldn't believe it. They called it frozen rope, like on a piece of string. So that's the sort of thing. So the excitement for the player is it's easier to hit, it's much more accurate on dispersion, distance control is better, and that applies to all clubs, whether it's a putter or whether it's a driver. That distance control, the miss hit is so much better, which is what you look for. It's your best worst shot.
A normal golf, they're after the miss hit, getting more at your miss hit. It actually gets to the green rather than coming up short. It's not as far offline. And in terms of controlling the energy throughout the shaft, that's what it does. I can make it sound golferish like. Dave can tell you the science behind it and why. It's something, if you've never looked at, which a lot of you won't have seen this because it is super new, it's one of those, have a look at it, do some research, have a go with it. And it's one of those I've used myself, I've got it in my own putter, I haven't done the other ones yet, but I've got, in my story, I've got a putter I love, and I'm really lucky, there's lots of toys and I really want a new one. However, I knew mine was missing something. I stuck one of these in. I still want a new putter because I just want a new one. However, I've now got a putter which is even better than it was, and I couldn't find anything out there in the marketplace what could beat what I had already. So I managed to beat something what wasn't possible to beat by anything else, and it's about a 5-year-old versus 7, so it's a standard putter. It's nothing different. A lot of you have them, and I was blown away by what it did. And especially for me, the off-centre hits, the consistency of what the ball was doing, the sound and the feel was the kind of, could say, the missing link to what I didn't have, couldn't find, was searching for, kind of found. And it's, I'm a good putter anyway, and it's maybe even better just by putting a small piece of plastic in, engineered plastic, to put it in a correct way, you could say. And it made a hell of a difference to me. And it just feels more fun as well. I'm going to believe it as that on that. But you know, the driver stuff for me, some of the people I've talked to have tried it, used it. It's just phenomenal the difference it's made. You know, Dave talks frozen rope.
That's quite a statement.
They enjoy having frozen rope drivers. I will say that.
Always down the
middle.
middle.
They enjoy having it straight. They enjoy hitting it longer.
Yeah.
And the players they've had. And it's interesting watching people who've had it done. And they might have one done to start with driver or part, and then have the wedges done, and you know exactly where they're going next. They get the irons done, they get the fairways done, they get the rescue done, so they've done the whole lot. And then they're, you know, optimise it, which is what they do, make sure it's perfect. And guess what? As soon as Dave's got a new product, they're the first people to go, right, can I make it any better? Not because theirs isn't perfect, because they've just loved the process of trying it and being one of the first to put it in the club. So, you know, any final kind of thoughts what you'd say on people and why they should give it a try, why it's something
why shouldn't you give it a try? Because if it makes your game easier, more enjoyable, gives you more consistency throughout your game, you'll achieve numbers you didn't expect to make before. You'll certainly lower your scores. Why wouldn't you? Make much more fun. And I think, should we just cover off this?
Yeah, what we're going to do, we're going to go for another video, separate video. I'm just going to talk about, we're going to hit some parts with this, get some data, talk about data in a rough way, and then what we do a bit later down the line is we'll bring the data up and talk through the data in more detail. But we give you a good overview on, we're going to stick it in a putter, give it a whirl, see how it is, and talk you through some of the kind of real world improvements, why you should have it done, why you should actually not wait, and why you should get it done now rather than waiting for other people to get it done first. Get that advantage first before anyone else does. But as always, thank you. Lovely having you, Dave.
Okay, thanks
very much.
Okay.